Don't want to sit by me either.
Okay, we'll call this council special session to order. Let's start off by the council retreat and reading our vision. Provide quality and effective and efficient services to our citizens. And our mission to develop and preserve the highest possible quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. Provide safe and healthy environment within a sound economic framework. And provide leadership which is open and responsive to the needs of the community and works for the benefit of all. And to walk us through this today, I'm going to have our government affairs, Rachel Berry and John Walsh, kind of help facilitate what we have going on. So we'll start with what we live by, the charter.
Lovely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And we're gonna open with just a little bit of kind of housekeeping and what we're doing here today. So as you are all very, well, you may not be comfortable yet, but this is being recorded. It is a public meeting under Oregon law. We have scheduled a little break in between, but I will also be watching the clock. I have another meeting at 6:30, so just be aware, I'm gonna be watching it.
Yeah.
Wanted to talk about the retreat cycle. So you come together twice a month. But we also have council retreats for you. In the odd years, this is when we do new member onboarding. When you're a new member, you get the binder, we chat a little bit, and then you go out to Portland State and the LOC training, which I hope you find helpful. It kind of sets the base of what the public officialing is all about. Right? And then in the even years, we do strategic work plan development. So that cycle includes the community survey, talking to department heads, talking to you all, and then we get into that 2-year work plan. We can also do retreats as requested if there are topics, if there are areas for more information, or if you feel a need or at all compelled. Purpose of this retreat is we're really talking about how we serve, why we serve. We're gonna review council functions and some of the governing documents, and then have some discussion around board and commission function structure, how they input to the city and the mission. So real quick, while everyone's eating, tell me what you love about St. Helens. We'll start with John, because you're not eating. Why do you love St. Helens, John? You've been here for a long time. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about answering for myself, but I really do love living here, working here. It's been it's just watching the transformation that's happening right now with the city being coming from being a mill town into something the next generation, and being part of that the transformation and the really the risks and the city council has taken to support that vision of something new and different, and imagining a different future of going on a limb and buying these properties, and the waterfront property and the mill-site property, and the strategic investments around the Ross Road property that'll cut through right there. This house up on 12th Street right there, so that the transportation systems will work. Right now we're just doing a lot of really good decision making to make it easier in the future to do these things as we were today. I'm all in.
I love what do I love about St. Helens. I love that. I love the the roots that we planted here, my wife and our children, and this was a community we were hoping to raise our children in a relatively wholesome environment, but we were also attracted to things the city already had, like a library, the access here on the river, the parks, and things like that. And in these last 30 years, as we became more and more involved in the community, connected with people, I would have to say that that's probably first, is being part of a smaller community with access to the big city if we need to, want to go. And easy access to recreation, coast, the mountains, but also loving it that we are developing those things here as well. With the beautiful future waterfront and some other development, and still loving it that I believe it's a place where families, single people, people of different backgrounds and beliefs can live together and enjoy the good life in a safe place.
That's what I was gonna say.
All of it, sure.
Every word.
Ditto.
No, I love the sense of community. I think this town, since I've moved here. Back in 95 or whatever it was. I've just always loved the sense of community and the people. For the most part, they're all great to work with. They're nice, friendly, talkative, and that's what's kept me here, because I didn't think I'd stay here, honestly. 2 kids and 25-year marriage later, I'm still here. Anybody else want to take that? Go ahead.
You know. I mean, I love the small town feeling of St. Helens. I love the parades and the rodeo and the fair and the sports and the schools. And being able to go into West Street and know, the cashier's name and they know your name. Like, that is what I love about St. Helens. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'm like everybody else. I like the people. First and foremost, it's all about the citizens and what we have going on here. Neighbor helping neighbor. I love the sense of community that all the events do bring. I mean, it's been a long history, but they've changed. It used to be porta funds and stuff like that. Now it's 13 nights on the river, which is something the city grabbed a hold of, and I like that the city's always provided services, and that's what made me want to get involved, is just because I wanted to be active in the community and be accessible to the community, because I already was. And not that there was a lot going wrong with the city when I came aboard, but I just wanted to be a part of and kind of carry the torch and passing of the baton, so to speak, and learning policy and trusting the process and always pushing it along faster than which is still slow by my standards, but pushing it along fast, because we're on a fast track on these urban renewals and stuff like that. Faster than most other cities. I've been to lots of different cities. Coos Bay, North Bend, both have urban renewals that were adopted a long time ago, and they're still working on those projects, and they made some momentum, but we're kind of on a fast track with what we got going on here. And fun to be a part of it. I love the river, draw to the river. Absolutely. We got also a big, huge watershed, which is, I like to say, that's our backyard, and the river's our front yard. Hour and a half from Mount Hood and an hour and a half from the coast. I look at my boat at the coast crabbing in an hour and a half. And come back to a place where people just appreciate one another, of all walks in life. I like we really are an inclusive, all-inclusive community. And that's what I like about it. So.
For me, just a little bit of what everybody said, but just the fact that it's home. It's always been home for me, and it still feels like home for my kids. You can go for a walk and see people and go out to eat, you see people and just looking ahead to our discussion about boards and commissions, just seeing people engaged and volunteering in so many different ways in the community, whether it's the food bank or if they're on the library board or whatever it might be, that there's always those dedicated people out there in the community that are engaged and trying to make it a better place. So I think it's a great place to be.
Great. Thanks. And we will do another quick.
You're not gonna.
Hey, yeah.
For all of these reasons, and I love the potential and I love the basalt and I love the, you know, like. The ability to connect our history with our future. I also love that, like, I will catch my neighbor kid in his diaper running in my backyard. You know what I mean? Like, it's small town, that sense of community. I know my neighbors. They keep an eye out, you know, and we do have that sense of like keeping an eye out. And right now there is just this amazing sense of like, of potential of being on the cusp. Like, it's a really
Mhm.
exciting time to be in a town of 15,000 people, like, which you don't often hear. We are young and growing and it's an exciting time to be here. And the connection to the river and to improve that and really to get back to what has made us and given us our sense of place, so. And we will do a round of like one thing you're looking forward to in this calendar year. And it could have already happened.
Hmm.
One thing this year.
Finance director.
Yes, that's perfect.
Hey.
One thing this year.
Breaking ground on phase 1 of the Riverwalk in the park.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay.
I'm thinking,
Yeah,
not that I don't have a lot to look forward to. I am interested to see how this 3115 bill pans out. And in July, start to see how what happens there. I think it's nothing, but at least for our town. I'm kind of interested in that.
I'm excited about the police station. I mean, you guys know that, so I'm very excited about it.
I'm excited about all the growth and how we as a council go about keeping that small town feel. That's kind of my vision and what I see, making sure we don't lose that.
That's one thing St. Helens has that a lot of places don't, is just that very unique sense of place where when you're here, you're nowhere else. So you're not in a metro area touched by other cities and even, you know, the geography, the water, the mountains, all of it kind of special place.
I'm looking forward to just continuing to meet with and get to know city employees better and learn what all the departments do and how things function. So that's been fun so far and I'm looking forward to continuing that.
cool.
Are we all going to that thing on Friday, the awards, the recognition?
I'm the only one who can't make it.
I just didn't want to be the only one that did make it. All that many people.
The casino part.
And just, I have it on the brain, but really looking forward to the Grow Navigator, to really like getting this entrepreneurial ecosystem up and functioning, and you all know, like, I like being a relationship person, so to see an awesome group that's functioning really well together and to keep going in the right direction, move it to the next step. So, growing.
Yeah,
Everybody feels healthier.
we'll be having an update on that soon.
Indeed.
Yes, on our next meeting.
Well, thank you.
You'll see it in your agenda. So, see it come out. See that in
Oh, right.
September, yeah.
Well, wonderful, and we've been through mission and vision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
And I just want to talk a little bit about just kind of the big picture review, right? We have 85 very talented staff, 85.6, serving our community. And if you look at this list, oh, I will also hand around, I know you may or may not.
Famous.
I love that thing.
Venn diagram.
But, and for the educators in the room, I thought at one point for having you all like draw lines from the council goal for the department and how it all feeds together and feeds into mission. right? Because
Interactive, huh?
have multiple lines,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And you can enjoy this exercise at your leisure. But it's really important just to think about, and I think about in my daily work, how I can connect my activities to goals and to mission. And that's really important for me and for our staff. It's a list, I mean, we lift, I like to say that we punch above our weight. And I think you agree, like
Oh,
that.
absolutely, compared to our peers, yeah, in a lot of categories, and
Mhm.
having the strategic plan, the goals, mission, it's give staff something that I like to look at.
And that will more likely be our next retreat, right? Will be those goals
Yep.
down the road.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be, and that'll be about this time next year. So, and in the meantime, we'll do the community survey again. And be listening and be thinking
Well,
about.
we get an update this year, because we got new counselors
Mhm.
on our goals. And that's what I'm gonna recommend we do as far as. Next to retreat is council goals and. And reprioritizing, maybe doing the stickers, you
Okay.
know, SWAT kind of thing.
Yeah, I love you, spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
See? Retreats is requested.
Because You know, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you get a lot from them.
No, those are always so insightful and the change in perspective and like what a difference a year makes too in a lot of things.
It puts us ahead of other people.
Coming up from a pandemic, like,
When you realize what we actually got going on and you sit in a group of, like, when we have city county dinners and we're doing reporting, you're like, whoa, we got a lot going on. And it makes more sense because,
If we ever sit in on those dinners again.
yeah, we are.
Done it,
they're back.
That,
for sure.
For
You guys
sure.
have a date?
yep, yes, we do.
I quickly went through it. I didn't see a date. Josh.
Resend it.
Will you resend it? Didn't see it either?
Check March. Second Tuesday of March, is it? Or,
Oh, you better be back.
I will be. Is it March 7th?
Oh, I might be at state.
And we can make you a calendar invite for that too.
No. Sorry, Rachel.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
so much of this is about relationship building and kind of resetting as a functioning governing body. I appreciate the discussion. Thank you. So, yeah, you'll see kind of the what we deliver, and then on the next slide, we go to the org chart. And this is the how. Why we all report to the people who serve. And then you have one person who reports to you. And the rest of us all report to him. So that's how it works. Make it sound easy.
All right, we're done.
That's how it works. And this is the other part of how it works is our city budget, right? You all hold in trust over $87 million.
As the newspaper reported.
I made this pie freshly for you this morning. It is true.
I like the way you broke that down.
Yeah, and just to look at our general fund, because it is the smallest slice of that pie, and that's where we do so much of the lifting, right? Those are our people are the program. This is how our direct service delivery.
Yeah, let's go through services and all that. We're right around 38 million. Typically, on a typical year.
For,
The capital project component of that's about 30 million.
Okay.
Rachel, can you explain those? So like general fund, I know what the general fund is, but maybe not everyone is aware like what funnels into that and what special revenue funds are.
yeah, and we'll do this. I spend most of my time in the general fund, so we'll see how they're gonna be doing. A lot of it's property taxes, intergovernmental revenue, some of the state revenue sharing monies. These are your like sin taxes come in there, your,
In the special revenue.
so those are in the general fund, those come into the general, that's your like cannabis, alcohol, that type of thing. Property taxes are the biggest chunk of that. We were just talking about the enterprise fund, so we can go there. These are the fee for service types. That's water, sewer, in there, you'll see some, yeah, storm. The SDC funds are in there that support new development.
So those are monies coming into the city.
Yeah, they are. Essentially businesses that are accountable to themselves, so the waterfront has to have revenue and expenditures and. Balance, each of those funds is an enterprise, it's a business. And the general government, the general fund is just all of the other taxes that come in. And part of the general fund is the special revenue funds, the internal service funds, the lighter one there, that's fees charged, franchise fees, things of that nature, these internal service charges against utilities to recapture some of those money that go into the general fund.
That's your yellow piece of pie, that's. Those are.
Special revenues are things like tourism, anything that has a restricted use on it. Special.
Yeah, I think about.
It's good to see it like that.
And some of the streets, yeah.
That type of thing. And those are generally all restricted funds for that purpose, particularly the enterprise and the special revenues. I think about those as like the most restrictive. That yellow piece, the internal services, those are to kind of keep the operations going, as is the general fund. I didn't do a very good job of that, but
That's what I was thinking.
Oh.
The general fund is like police and parks and just everything, right? I mean, it's worth way more than it brings in, obviously, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the internal services help support.
And
Covers it a little bit.
we have the police station involved in this budget cycle and
Yes.
part of the urban renewal on the waterfront in this cycle as well.
Urban renewal is a separate budget, but
But we've taken a loan knowing that the urban renewal will support it. Yes, so
essentially
that's why you're seeing a huge amount there.
it's a little bit, yeah.
So financial director will be able to explain it much better. than-
Sometimes all we talk about is money going out and where it's going, but I think it's important to see how it's coming in too, and then how we are like, able to cover other things, because the general fund obviously couldn't cover itself.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right.
It's important for citizens to know that.
And that's really the takeaway, the smallest slice up there, that general fund. Does a lot of heavy lifting,
Mhm.
these are the people and the program delivery.
So there-
All of us.
So there is crossover though from one fund to like say the general, rather. The general fund, right? Like if you needed to move money around, can you do that? Does that make sense?
To some extent, you can charge like administrative fees. On certain funds.
So if the general fund is at 36 whatever million, that's it? That's the projected amount? Or is that the actual?
It's pretty close, depends on what state's revenue sharing is, property tax increase of 3%, whatever that is. Yeah, but it's fairly close to that number.
These are council approved budget for the fiscal year we're sitting in,
Okay.
so this is the. 23 budget numbers. But it's important for you all to just have a sense of the scope and the scale and really this is how we deliver services. Wish that general fund pie was bigger. So I'm glad that y'all have been out to training. For counselors, Cindy and Gunderson, was there like one, or actually anyone in the room from the LOC training and the PSU trainings, like what was your one big kind of takeaway from that?
I'm about to get sued.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
City administrator is the mayor's best friend.
Yeah.
And also the council's best friend. I mean, in terms of, needing to. Run the city,
Their takeaways from those
It
trainings?
was good for me just to see that I'm not the only one that doesn't know what they're doing. Everybody was there to learn together and there was a lot of new people and
Yeah,
fresh people, and so it was just refreshing to see people wanting to get involved and be there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Willing to learn, so that was nice just to know you're not alone.
That's kind of like how I felt at the League of Oregon Cities is sitting with other, council members and hearing how different their councils function. Some have 10 counselors, some have, 6, and just like, it's very different for every city, and I had no idea it was like that. So that was really eye-opening, and being able to talk to them about, how long their council meetings are and how do they operate with information that they're given and things they're voting on, and just seeing that difference in how we run ours.
Yeah, just the ABCs.
Yeah.
Basically, is what I got from PSU. Yeah, it was very insightful. Meeting people that were brand new, some people that were counselors actually became mayors. And went to it as well, because I don't think they actually were well informed as a counselor, so that's why they were there, and yeah, just meeting, like Brandon said, just meeting people, and because you're all newly elected, pretty much, is what the class is for.
Yeah.
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 Yep, so.
The League of Oregon Cities, I think it was that one, also did stress the team aspect of the council. Much more so than, but you know what I mean, like, you're on a team, you may not think you are, but if your vote doesn't, if your vote loses, you're still part of the team, you're still owing it, right? Owning it.
Yeah.
You learn that in the thick of it too. It's like, the next meeting is a new meeting and there's new things to talk about and discuss, and you gotta be able to move on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm not gonna read this to you. There they are. And you are the governing body. You give us the overall direction, you set policy, you direct resources. And then it is for staff to implement and manage, right? We've got one staff. Who sees that all of that happens. Everyone evaluates, everyone improves. That's my pep talk for myself. Yeah, well, it's important to have those reflective moments, and when things don't work, like, let's be honest about that. Like, let's.
Well, and an example, I'll just say, Counselor Locke will talk the rest of the council into letting him be the mill overseer, and that did not turn out well. It just didn't. That's a clear example of where it could really go wrong. He retired prior to it all falling apart and going really bad, but and it wasn't because he wasn't here, it's because of everything that he had done. It was just finally caught up, so. That's why it's let staff do their job and not get involved. Yes, if you have concerns, absolutely. Bring them to each other, bring them up in the meeting. If need be, if you can, go to John first, so try to resolve it there. Feel like you're not being hurt, bring it to the rest of the council.
We don't need to have case studies to bring our insurance company, so.
Serial meetings, I'm sure you guys learned and talked a lot about those. It's always up for debate. Didn't we have someone come and talk to us, was from the League of Oregon City, about serial meetings and stuff?
Yes.
That was recently, was it?
That was,
The Ethics Commission is what it was.
Yeah.
And they'll be back in April for more training. It was good for all of us and staff and volunteers too, so. That'll be very wonderful.
discussions about actual conflicts and perceived conflicts, and really at the end of the day, they're kind of the same thing, so.
Yeah, over declare. But not to get sued, just over declare. Yeah, in public, over declare.
Well, I mean, the general public, when they see you in public and more than two.
Yeah.
You may be talking about something that's completely not related to the city, but the perception is that you probably are, so you have to be really careful about that, and then. It's the real thing.
How's that gonna work at dinner on Friday?
You're technically not wrong, right? I mean, it's okay to go to trainings together and to go to, conferences and not talk, but you just can't talk city business.
Yeah, it's about making decisions or deliberating towards a decision.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, if you wanna talk Super Bowl all day long, encourage.
We're so spread out and we're all over the place that.
Self-check kind of thing, where
Don't sit together,
No whispering in the corner over there, counselors. No. Something to be mindful of. Yeah,
So the city charter is it's kind of our founding documents. It says it establishes the city, right? It's like a constitution of the city.
right.
Not gonna go too deep on this. It's fairly short. I'm sure you've skimmed it at least, and it establishes the authority, the powers, city limits, that. um, The form of government. And what it's important here is what it doesn't really say. So in order to change the charter, that takes a vote of people. 50%, 51%. Make any kind of changes that can be put on the ballot by the council, can be put on by referendum. And you look towards the back, you'll see things that have been put on by referendum, which you wonder how they got there, and there's usually a backstory of how that ended up there. Garbage burners and sugary back tax beverages and things like that.
It's true. You find these in charters across the state, across the nation, like little charter presence that came from controversy, right? And citizens organizing. A powerful thing.
Our legislative authority of how we approve ordinances. Right now we do, generally, we have a policy of, it's a good one, of reading everything twice, two separate meetings. There is a process, and a lot of cities do an emergency. You can declare it an emergency, and then it gets enacted in one meeting as long as everybody's there and everybody else.
Only one reading and one vote.
You can do it like that. We don't, just because it doesn't feel right, but if it's something that's a deadline driven. Grant application needs to go in by a date, special meeting kind of thing, or a rate thing that needs to
It already
happen,
happens.
and it's pretty rare.
Should be.
This should be, so. I think we are pretty good about that. The administrative authority, as far as how the council functions. All it says in the charter is you shall adopt council rules. And that's all it says. So you have the ability to adopt your own rules. Whatever you want. And you can change it. Resolution that modifies or changes that, and has functions, deletes functions. And that's important. Not fundamentally changing the form of government, but just changing the rules. But in between the council's rules and the charter is a governing policy, which is something that was. Council more than I think is.
It came before my time.
In the Brian Little era. He was
Yeah.
the manager. Their favorite branch.
It was him and Barlow,
Mhm.
Bill. Or that. But it was back and forth. There was a change in the charter and then it went back to the old charter.
Yeah, and that was because the charter doesn't say anything about it through the rules, it tried to create a commission form of government where the commissioners were actually had oversight over departments. So it was unclear what the city's administrator's role was in that. You have two bosses, is the person over police, the head of police, are they gonna try to figure that out? And that was pretty good. It was reminded a few times over the years, but it eventually takes and tries to create a collaborative process that the administrator, certain decision types can work with. Related on to
Certainly
decisions.
too, yeah.
They still retain the authority of the council to hire and fire department heads and the manager. That's in there. But then, and it also talks about personnel evaluations and who's evaluating what personnel.
We went through and did that about probably 4 years ago, probably about 6 years ago, actually, I think. Yeah. We went through and actually made it changed some of the authorities, gave more power back to John and administratively with a little bit bigger dollar amount to make decisions between the departments there and moving city forward, so they didn't have to come to everything, had to come for a vote. Because twice a month sometimes is when you're thinking about things and then you have to, get it on the agenda, to be talked about, it's just like, no. We were here till 5:30, wasn't uncommon to be on a work session. Correct? Yes.
Yeah.
Many late nights.
Yeah. This was a surprising thing when I came here, and my first instinct was like, this is a terrible idea. Like it just, I felt like it really kind of like clouded things, and then hearing about the commission structure and how, many decades ago, there just wasn't a high level of trust between council and your administrator. And that relationship being frayed, council felt like they wanted to be more hands-on. So I understand it's been dialed back over, or it's been changed over time to meet our evolving city and the needs.
We tried to design it to be more effective.
Yeah, yeah,
Because City of Portland had the exact style that we used to have before we changed administrative rules. City of Portland just changed their charter to actually go back to the city manager, mayor.
Yeah.
Rule.
well,
So we were the only, community in the state other than Portland that had that.
Yeah. So it seems to work, and Rachel is still kind of questioning, and I said, Rachel, it's working fairly well, and I think it gives that conduit for the city administrator to actually pull in the liaison to, with the department head and say, hey, here's what we got going on, and do some problem solving and,
yeah, and the thing to embarrass John is that you've got a really good employee here.
oh, yeah.
And John was like, no, I actually enjoy this because it's not that I wouldn't be going for your buy-in and for that collaboration, but it's been kind of ensconced here, and it's part of just the way.
Our city attorney will tell you that it's technically dysfunctional, it's highly dysfunctional. This is terrible, but I said, it's really about the people, right?
Yeah.
It's about the relationships, it's about trust, it's about,
Yeah.
it's working. I'm not proposing to change it. I'm just saying that it's potential error. It involves all of these triangles of decision making,
Right,
and it's really complicated.
Yes.
right, but it also
Not well,
creates.
and some of it's not well defined about what's in and what's out. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's like development.
But there's also, from this, you breed buy-in, you breed consultation, you breed more kind of working together to. Particularly around personnel and not department head. What our team looks like. That there's more weigh-in and buy-in on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I just want to point it out, our attorney hates it.
Well,
That wasn't Bill, it's.
okay.
We're Bill. How do you guys function? All right, good for you.
And then the next doc, the operating rules and procedures is actually how we function. I don't know if you want to just kind of take a spin through this.
Yeah, again, this is a document that you can change and set up. Most recently, we changed the time of the work session, so that amendment from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and it shows up in this document. And
It doesn't have to be a go to the people charter
Schedule.
change, right?
if your schedule's better, it carries on.
Mhm. And this also covers if the mayor is hit by a bus for some reason, you know what I mean, like how special meetings can come together, how you won't be. If you're in Florida having a lovely time and we need to special meeting.
The urban stingray.
Yeah, I know, if you're swimming with stingrays and anything happens. But but we go here, right? And I kind of think in parallel sometimes, but this is where we go to figure out how the mechanisms will go along.
Same with like an emergency, if there's an emergency in the community, natural disaster, something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which council president, how it goes down the order. Some things are not defined, but then there's just best practices. vacancies and things like that.
Yeah, because I can declare a state of emergency, but I have to get a vote of the council.
Then,
To actually, yeah. Because we had to do that when COVID started happening.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
so one interesting thing in the rules, and there's not many, but is the first place. The term liaisons, pardon, liaisons is not in the charter, not in the governing policy. It's, here in this operating rules and procedures in section 15 there. Fine.
Yeah.
Acting as that communication link.
Well, and also just take a little perusal of 14, which is about upland commitments, right? Appointing. You create. But you create an ordinance or resolution to create a committee, you then wind up appointing the members, generally with a recommendation. Yeah, and it goes through a little bit of conduct, and we're gonna go to conduct right now. Is there anything else on the? Okay. Cool, and let,
Business, how the agendas are structured, all set out here.
yep, and if you need to reconsider anything. What happens in there? So group agreements. We're so happy to be in a place where we're looking forward to orderly business meetings. Okay, these are kind of the suggested agreements, right? Being open to the process. Your position does require significant responsibility, and I'm sure people, your neighbors tell you that, and on the street, you can feel that a little bit. Being present, keeping your electronics to a minimum, and honoring confidentiality. Welcoming people to come and talk to you, I think, is huge. This is about working together in service from the dais, but also out in your regular lives. We have in the packet, there is a council team agreement that does a little bit more on these points. And you might want to review this because it is about, presiding over the meeting, mayor presiding, inviting people to come up and speak, time limits on testimony, and just making sure that it's conducted as a business meeting is a really important one.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
There is particularly gavel training though that you have to get signed off on.
Yeah, if you hit it too hard, it actually starts on swivel, so you have to retype it. Yeah.
And if you hit it really hard, the base will go flying. Depending on the material. We've seen that. And the two things that we talk about when you get your binders, please come prepared and read your packet. And if you have questions, get them to John in advance.
I'm guilty of not doing that sometimes. Sorry, Kathy. Okay.
The watching the second, elementary school kids that come in here and get a chance to go through the court and go through up on the dais and hold the gavel and watch them smack the gavel. It's priceless to sit there and watch how they react to that. Some of them are just like, and other ones are like, there is a definite presence, even at a younger age, that what trouble is about.
Right. And I think that Councilor Hilton hit on a really important part, is that once you take a vote, you may disagree and have that discussion. But once the vote is taken, you're with the others, and it's something that council has, you act as a body, you may not agree, but you're gonna be back in 2 weeks to debate a new, different, hard subject, so.
You carry grievances with you, as we've seen in our history.
Yes, we have.
It usually makes the environment very toxic and very hard to move forward.
Yeah. Really good. And there will be time, and disagreeing is a beautiful part of the process too, of those discussions, disagreeing. One more thing in the packet, we've got the mantra, which is. There's your.
I actually really like this mantra. You read it. Very, very good.
I haven't been reading it anymore.
Yeah.
To read it.
It was jinxing my meeting that though.
Well, I believe that members of the council who would be willing to abide
Yes.
by it. I can understand the
And
frustration.
I do still carry it. It's in the packet, so we could start reading it again.
No, no.
It's a stable routine.
I do like the way it sets a
Yeah.
meeting. It doesn't have to be done. You know, there was actually a discussion amongst mayors about doing that or not doing that. No, just pledge of allegiance, saying, you know, and knowing that we're gonna, that's what we live and die by right there, our mission.
Yeah, I work
It
with
really is.
groups where we open every meeting with the mission.
That would be,
It really helps to center.
Current question,
Mantra.
yeah. And ask yourself, am I following that? Current question. Help me out, you know, that's where it's like, I'm gonna shut up because
My shorthand that
I may not be exactly right. I can see where this might fit in, even though I don't agree with it. That's.
yeah, and that's the shorthand that I live by, is mission is boss.
Going back to your question earlier about takeaways from the trainings, one of them has to do with point 11 here, just reminded me, but. Just the fact that it's not a question and answer session, especially when somebody comes for public comment, because honestly, that's something that used to bother me, is that somebody would come and. Speak to the city council and then they just get blank stares, and I always thought, why aren't they getting any answers, or why isn't there any engagement there, but. Just understanding that that's not the time, or that's not the purpose of that. I think it was the mayor of North Bend that shared that, and just kind of the idea behind that. And she has a little statement she reads before every public comment session that just explains that. And
We
lets you
should
know
do that.
I like that, because I thought if I would have known that earlier, that would have made sense.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
and it, yeah, would help people who come and look at us and then, well, oh, crickets, why hearing cricket? Well, hearing crickets because.
Expectation.
Expectation, so.
I definitely think we should
That
implement.
was a big takeaway for me. I thought,
Well, the key part of it is why we don't have all the information right at hand. We don't wanna put him on the spot, make him look bad, because it may be a department head that he needs to get the answer from sometimes too. He doesn't always have all the answers.
Yeah, and it's very common practice, say, you know, we'll look into this and get back to you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Point over and direct. You do it. A lot of times I take the initiative and make notes, and if I have permission to share, I'll call them up after, I'll just find out who they are and go. Yeah, I mean, that goes so far for people to just acknowledge that they're a game and feel about it. Sometimes it's not the answer they want to hear, but.
It's a good thing about having folks sign in too, and that's so staff can follow up if you've got a specific concern. And while you're out in the world too, if folks come to you with questions. You can direct staff to follow up. Kind of feels good, like I will direct my staff to get back to you. You can totally use that. But. All right, and just a little bit, I think that y'all, and the conversations we've had during onboarding have been great, and just a reminder that we've got communications professionals. They do a fabulous job. This is another place where we're punching well above our weight. Our communications team is fabulous. We aim for good, succinct information timely to the press. You all will be called by the press and asked for comment. You can certainly direct to John, direct to our communications team. If you feel very strongly about something and want to make a statement, go ahead, but identify yourself as
Yes,
citizen, state your name.
yeah, you're not representing the council.
It gets confused, of course, but
Paper will print it with counselor, whatever you say.
yes. But just having communication that's on the same page and really streamlined, speaking with one voice is really important. Of course, in times of, disaster. In times of excitement, it's important to have shared talking points too, but. It's great, or if you get asked to lend a quote to a story, something like that, Crystal can certainly help
Yeah.
develop that.
Well, my biggest takeaway is you feel like you're under pressure, you don't have the answers. just tell them, you know, look, hey, and if you're on the phone, to say, hey, look, you know what? I can't do this right now, I'll have to get back to you. If you happen to get the information from staff, you wanna call them back, fine. As long as you have a, you know, a little education behind what you're gonna say. But Crystal's the best conduit to go through. If you'll actually take quotes from you and put that back out. You can just say, if you're uncomfortable, you can say, you know, I just really think you need to go through our communications. And they know Crystal, they do know her.
I like that when it comes to like the press, but I do think that there is a point where you have to represent your city and the community when you talk to people. And you have to be willing to talk to people and, you know, and to know what you're talking about. But I feel like if these are our constituents, these are people that voted for us to take this office. So when you don't answer a phone call and you direct it to staff, you know, it doesn't always leave the best impression. So I think there are just wading the water and knowing when it's appropriate to divert it to staff and when it's appropriate for you to talk to that person as a, you know, a neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I totally.
Definitely.
Agree with you.
You can reach out to staff and we'll give you the information. You can put it back.
There you go.
That loop.
Making sure that it is, you know, cohesive, but it's also still coming from, that's it, you know, so.
I'm just talking about the media.
No, yeah, and that's different too. I feel like that's different than, you know, my cousin Sally down the street calling me because she's curious about when the sidewalk's gonna get fixed.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's different than the media being like, tell us, wow, the finance director and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, okay, no, that's.
That's like a statement. That's when you're like, hang on.
Yeah.
Careful never to promise something to somebody. You know, say, I'll check into it. It makes sense. You can say it makes complete sense. And I see where you're going with this, but check on it. Get back to you.
Confirm their concerns or questions or whatever, but yes, then say, yes, you will be referring it to. Encourage them to, I think I oftentimes encourage them to reach out self, or I say, I will look into it, but yes, not ever committing to anything.
I mean, there was I think all of us were approached years ago over the Columbia Boulevard, not Columbia Boulevard, it would be North Fredonia Road Sidewalk Project. Is complete now. We were approached multiple times by multiple citizens over that, and nobody promised, and finally we're like, you know, we've heard this from enough citizens openly in the meeting and directed Sue Nelson and John to find them ways and means of getting that done. And we got the sidewalks done.
And it's a nice side.
Yeah.
I did it myself.
Well, and absolutely, like, you're also there to field citizen concerns.
Yeah.
Right, and folks.
And they feel heard.
Encourage folks to come and make that comment. I mean, that's how we got all of the, you know, the responsible voting group that came together just recently to address those issues. That was born of conversations with you all.
Yeah.
Folks showing up here, making public comment, like,
Well, that example, I was actually called out for after we'd already adopted it. To look at people's trees, and I'm like, I did not say, no, we're gonna go around or nothing.
I knew that
Yeah,
big comment was gonna
And I
get you.
left it- and I left it alone, and actually our staff. Seen the logic in going around a few trees. Because it made more sense fiscally and for the health of the tree. So, you know, but I could have tried to get deeply involved in that, and I didn't have to. You know, I just let that run its course sometimes. So.
Just looking up there, it reminded me, community education. One of the things I would love to see is get their help with coming up with some kind of video, meet your city council. This is what- I've seen some great videos on YouTube, but I was surprised by how many people, when I decided to run for city council, they said, what does the city council do?
Yeah, I still get that.
Yeah, still.
No idea that they meet regularly, that you can watch them. They just, there's so many people that have no idea what this group does.
City.
I think it would be great just to get that out there, that this is what they do. This is how you can see the meetings. This is how you can be more engaged and more involved, because I guess I was the only weird one, stays up late at night watching all these meetings, but apparently not everybody else does that, so.
You're not the only one.
I know. I'm getting texts during the meeting, we're in trouble. Okay, well, and with that, we've got a break. So, break and we will come back and talk boards and commissions.
All right,
Very dry retreat.
I'll join you.
Hang tough.
I'm gonna call during public comment to try to go on the air. I was like, oh, I'm sure if you just call Rick, he'll come in.
Those calls from Tammy Maker the other day, it was like Fridays, it was like 9 o'clock or after. It was like-
Watch out.
It's like.
Does it let me on the air or not?
No, she's just calling. Yeah, I don't know. And she does call occasionally. It's information.
I don't.
Tammy's always been involved in that, in everything
Yeah.
for a long
How
time.
about the rail too?
She ran for county commissioner years ago, you know that?
Yeah, she and Brady.
Did Brady too?
You guys want
Yep.
to put me in a minute?
Yeah, I think they ran together. They kind of had a campaign
All
together.
right, you guys ready to go back to it? We'll wait for Mark. We'll wait for Mark, actually.
Go. Michelle.
That was a good speaker.
He's a great community member too.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Back to order. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is really a space for discussion about our boards and commissions, health function. Legal requirement for some of them. So I'm sorry these slides are so boring, but if we can go to the next one. They're just too much text. Sorry about the slides, everyone.
Did you write this?
I did.
Okay. Too much text?
Yeah, it's just too much. They're not my best slides.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, not my best slides. But really just to outline, I mean, the boards and commissions, you appoint them, they are advisory to the council. The functions are set in code for each. We'll go through a little bit of that. Members are appointed. Generally, there's a recommendation of that committee for who they would like to come and serve. And the budget committee has shifted to that. It used to be just a direct appointment. Who do you got? You know,
Yeah. Well, each one of us.
Yeah. they're permitted to adopt their own bylaws, any rules of order they may need, or any procedure. And it is that community connection and volunteerism, and I talk to folks out, as I'm sure you do. That I want to do something, I was like, well, we've got a vacancy on our budget committee, it's the most exciting of all.
I do think. It'd be important to note though that the planning commission isn't solely advisory. That it also functions. As an independent decision maker.
Quasi judicial. Yep.
Subject to appeal to the council, but they can,
Absolutely, and there are two committees that we're required to have by law. The planning commission and budget committee, right?
The council can function as a planning commission and some smaller cities do that, so
but yeah.
advise yourself. That's
As long as you follow the law on it, and there is that. The public hearing bit, and I'm thinking about that because it will be very awkward when I run out of here in a little bit. I serve as the chair on the school district budget committee. And all budget committees, the primary function is to ensure public input, to ensure that there's an opportunity for public input. And that the message is delivered to the public. What's gonna happen?
the chair, right?
And we,
Yeah,
but it always comes down to we are the ultimate authority who adopts the budget, who also can overrule the planning commission. Or adopt what the planning commission recommends. Sometimes it takes them to recommend and us to actually approve. Belinda.
Yep, and I believe. Well, yeah, let's go through some of these key functions. And your seats as liaisons to a commission, like, it does a number of important things to provide that connectivity here to council. In, I believe, all cases, you're non-voting folks. Who, is that true for planning commission? You're a non-voter. So that is correct. But it's important, and we'll talk about that link, but let's just do a little review of key function. And they're pretty long too. The Parks Commissions are really long. So I'm not going to read it all. But absolutely advisory to city council, and you're correct. The planning commission, that quasi judicial, where they're reviewing the land development regulations and recommending action. Making a decision at that point, and then it comes to you as a council. So those are our 4 active committee. The budget committee was on the prior slide.
We used to have quite a few more. We've consolidated where it's maybe changed.
The bicycle, that's right. And we had the,
Correct landmark.
yeah, an horticultural.
Cultural, historic landmarks, tourism.
There is talks about horticultural coming back, and I'm not too opposed to that. Revisiting that here soon with everything we got going on.
And let's use this space to talk about it. And, and these are the currently inactive ones, right? Our Arts and Cultural Commission. There's 5-year plan was kind of the key piece there, but it also governs our public art collection. I found inventories of city-owned public art.
Canoe,
Yes.
that's been, is public art.
Yep, and a lot of the 2-dimensional stuff, like you've come across inventories.
Councilor Berkeley and I had talked about this Arts and Cultural Commission a little bit.
Yep.
Just because we both see there is a need, so we're actually talking about bringing it to the council.
Yep.
So it's kind of something, I don't mean to jump in there, but something else that I've been kind of chewing on is the idea of creating a recreation board or advisory committee. Especially with the division of parks kind of stepping away from the recreation role. I think that there is a huge need in the community for recreation focused advisory, on like, how do we want to see that develop? If we're gonna kind of separate it from parks a little bit, I think that there is a little bit of meat on the bone there for an advisory.
I think that makes sense, but I think with the Arts and Cultural Commission and 2 youth councils, something I thought I wanted to put more energy in, and I just found that I haven't been able to do that. But I do think an important consideration is what is going to be the impact on staff. If these commissions and boards are active, we have certain requirements, right, for staffing, then does it have to be anyway? But I think that's something to keep in the mix is what's the impact on
Level of
staff?
effort to every board, and that was really the driver before, when we had 8 commissions and where each had a secretary and minutes and agendas and all that goes into making a meeting, and the front side and the back side,
Yeah, I mean, and let's,
their hours, the
And the volunteerism
let's
was
talk.
not there. That's why some of these went away. It was actually the bicycle ped, the arts and cultural was actually did dwindle down. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. So there's that community engagement piece. I do want to talk a little bit about the impacts on staff. You all know we have very limited resources. And I think we were talking about this, there's the public meeting, the noticing, because they are governed by public meetings law, but each commission, planning commission takes quite a bit more staffing. But you need at least 2 staff to run it, really 3. Right, we've got a recording, we've got minutes happening, we've got the broadcast piece. You've got kind of a staff person, one of your department heads sitting at the table. And then we do have a number of our folks, of course, are represented. So that's time. You know, it's that balance of like, we want it to be really accessible to citizens, but that's gonna chew into daily work tomorrow. Or whenever that person can flex.
Right, you're either taking the time off, you know, you don't do a lot of overtime. Just for better reasons, and so you're accruing that as comp time, so you have a 5-hour planning commission meeting that's basically taking a whole day of capacity out. Off the floor, you know, Jenny's. Got 8 hours comp time today, and, that's a real impact. And so, especially when she's out bringing home the bacon, getting grants and managing projects and, you know.
The nice thing about the river walk, is that our horticultural commission did have say in that when it first started, and it was always talking about getting the culture and highlighting the connectivity to the river, incorporating that into the trail of 30 plots. So that is already in the.
Yeah, and it's really for you all to think about a standing committee versus an ad hoc. Right, I mean, you can pull folks together to problem solve, or if we need some citizen engagement around a certain thing. Versus a standing committee that needs staffing and a point of contact and that type of support.
Docs, most recently, the docs was a really good example of how that ad hoc worked and
So,
an issue worked on it.
so is that something? Say, I mean, if we do determine, and again, as much as I would like to, and I think the mayor's very interested in this too, having Arts and Cultural Commission, is there some way we can respond to some of it? It might not be the well, it would be some way to meet some of these goals in terms of I don't know, council giving directive that when things are happening, certain projects, that there is an ad hoc committee of citizens or whatever who are appointed to be involved in the process. So kind of meet the intent of some of this, but without then needing to staff it. Is that just something we would just urge staff to keep in mind, or is it something we can adopt as I don't know, whatever, something saying, hey, when such and such a thing this is happening, we would like to formally appoint or say have a group of 3, 4, 5 citizens involved. I don't. So
We kind of had that with Joan, and what I'm gonna say it wrong. So what is Joan Youngberg? What is it? What is their?
They are the
Organization
Columbia
called-
Arts Guild.
Yeah, so maybe that could be somebody we could actually reference, because they did some stuff in our park.
right.
You know, the little houses, and then they also did something hanging from the
Thanks.
flags.
Like, Crest Plaza.
Well,
That's where we have to look up a little bit and around and see who else might be doing the kinds of things we want to happen, or maybe they're already happening. Maybe there's arts groups that want
Yeah,
to engage with, or there's recreation. There's other people doing some components of recreation, but
well,
probably not the lens that we would take it. But
and first thing is mission fit, right? How does this serve our mission? That's always gonna be the first stop, right? And if so, like and being clear with your expectations. Right? If we're feeling the need for, you would like more citizen input regarding public art on the river walk phase 2.
Mhm.
You know, being really clear with those parameters is an important thing. And then there is the resources piece, right? Is this, a bit of staff? Is it in every other month? Or can we team this up with a planning exercise or something that's ongoing?
and the Zoom meeting would be probably easier to manage like add an ad hoc committee. Like John was recommending, and with the Zoom meeting would be less. He's still productive. And we'll get the same. Conclusion, but a lot less city staff involved. And then that could come to we could have 2 councilors sitting on it if we wanted to. And whatever citizens. And then it could be a presentation at the end of that to us, even though you sat you were on the ad hoc, you're the kind of liaison and championing it and bringing it to the council,
Right,
right?
right. Well, and I haven't talked to you about this, but we think about this a different way, and do we try and staff an admin role that supports all of the boards and commissions? Do you try and staff a board and commission admin? That would like support administration and then be able to get hands on some of this.
So that would be another budget item and
Yeah, it would be- yeah.
let's see the return on the investment of the waterfront. And that role, somebody budgeting and showing numbers and helping facilitate the city council with proposed development. More of a vital role than that,
Yeah.
and we're looking at budget and it's always limiting.
Oh,
Tiny
sure.
bit. We're not quite there yet, but next year we are.
Yeah,
And if we already have this person there.
there are plenty of needs, I mean. there are plenty.
Oh, sure.
That, right, but you know, just different ways to think about. To think about these boards and commissions, right? I mean, your last parks, some of these parks meeting will have like 4 or 5 staff present to answer questions and to. To try and, you know, get good information. Out, you know. And then it comes back as recommendations to council for places to make investments or ways to address it. It's an important part of citizen engagement and lets people be involved somehow. But there are also times where we can't fill a position for like. I don't know, Kathy, how long have we gone with some empty positions?
It's really hard right now. We only have one for the budget committee and we have 2 positions. Library board's having a hard time and so is Parks and Recreation.
Again, that's why they dissolved.
Yes, and
Control and-
Arts and Cultural, we're actually having a lot of infighting.
Yes, there was at the time some disagreements
Yeah.
Was it?
about.
Could we go back a slide too, you know, I'm thinking about, because there are some we're legally required to have.
It's possible to revive some of them, but maybe they don't meet every month, maybe they meet quarterly, or maybe they meet twice a year. It's not always necessary that they have to meet every month, is it?
Like,
It's true, Brady.
yeah,
It kind of begs the question whether it's a standing committee or an ad hoc kind of situation. So infrequently.
or is the pool of advisors helpful for you all?
Well, coming up, next council meeting on the agenda, you're gonna see a First and Strand Street and Gateway design discussion and this St. Helens and First intersection right there, put in foundations to have to support either pillars or an arch that goes across the road. And that's, it could be an engineering exercise, it could be more of an RC kind of function, and we're hoping to bring you a couple of things to look at, or at least get direction for that. Apparently we've reached out to some local folks and you know, now's the time to do it. Right?
We don't know what it looks like, but we also envisioned maybe being able to put up banners there too.
We're just for
Out in the bit.
one arch, metal arch goes across.
Have you seen the old arch?
Yeah.
Very early days, yeah.
I was up the street.
Yeah, I think 4th Street.
I was thinking that earlier.
Okay, I want to.
Look. It's
Probably not a good idea, John.
We have a wayfinding guy that you're.
Propose that.
It's lovely.
But the roots, we intentionally in the riverfront and the Riverwalk streets, all these projects have not included art. We've provided space for art. They just didn't want to bog it down into the process of. You know, it's a whole nother thing to go after the art.
Volcanoes. There are volcanoes.
Trying to keep it an infrastructure project and art's important, art's it's that extra kick and.
We still have a little more work to do on our branding and wayfinding too, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot more left to do, yeah. That's something to consider, you know. What we already have.
Yeah, we've made
Yeah.
some investment and there's still lots more to go.
Yeah.
But that plan is there, right? And with Travel Oregon grants coming back online, that's a great place to look. And those sources will probably,
Sometimes that can look really good, just having a theme throughout the town, Also keeping that in mind.
Salt stone, the color palette, the.
Right. Well, one thing, I guess one of my interests, let's say, would be the youth council and maybe it doesn't necessarily, another way of looking at it, doesn't necessarily have to be the youth council was constituted, but I do think there would be some value. There's some way, I think it would be good if we were able to have, and I'm not sure how the school board does it. I know they have 2 student representatives at their meetings. I think maybe they're chosen because they're part of the high school student government, whatever. But if we were to have 1 or 2 high school or middle school, high school age students who would actually, I think Councilor Morton mentioned that how once upon a time he remembers. Yeah, we got that we do that we could maybe even do that type of thing where we put out a call for candidates interested in like representing, the youth representative, that we could have do that without having to at this time, although in the future it might be nice to have youth council, but at least to do something along those lines of having a representative of the youth present at our meetings and just maybe without having to go through the whole committee stuff, but just something that we put out a call, develop the requirements that we're looking for. They would have to be high school age, could be a homeschooler, I guess, anyway, certain age that we could do that so that I guess that was my main concern was with having some youth council, just having a presence and a voice without necessarily having to reconstitute the whole youth council at this time.
could we try and plug in a youth to parks and the library board? That might be a little less intimidating than sitting at the dais, but I mean, I'm open
There
to,
could be, I mean,
There is a way of getting that. The youth council used to be functioning. It used to be, they did things and it's a great way for them to get involved and do their elections amongst themselves and come up with ideas and figure out funding mechanisms and move it forward. We even actually tried to fund them, but they just kind of did a lot of cleanup days and stuff like that. Basically just community service to the community, but I was trying to encourage them to even further that, and
I like it.
yeah.
A quarter of our population's under 20. Let's make sure that voice is represented, right?
so I mean, do we want to try and get this kid?
I mean, maybe
Choose between.
maybe we talk about our next council meeting, our report and maybe campaign the high school to see if there's enough that want to sign up. You need to have probably 9 of them at least.
Well,
Going.
The problems, if you don't mind me. Is that board is a, city board, it's in our code, but it did not, it should have followed public meetings law and it never did. So we have to think about, it's just exactly the same, we're gonna have to staff it. People, it's gonna have to get noticed, somebody's gonna have to do minutes, do the recordings.
That's right.
And then the other problem that we have with that is there was such a high turnover because kids would get on the board and then they would age out. And so it was constantly turning over. It was like, it got to the point where I wasn't even gonna keep track of it anymore. And so it just kind of got out of hand in that way.
That's when we went to the rec, it was called something different.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
And that leadership club was like really wonderful and impactful. They had a good time and they were doing some community service stuff and like really enjoyed it. And I think that'll be continuing. That kind of leadership club.
And if they went with Robert's Rule of Order, we're taught everything like we do here, it would be no different.
Well, why not invite one of those kids to come to your meetings on a regular basis and then rotate it? rotate it with another kid on that panel.
So they're still meeting and still strong.
Let's find out.
Yeah, we don't even know.
Yeah, I'm gonna find out, yeah.
Connection.
Or even
Talked
connecting
about
with
recently, but we didn't talk about that, so.
the student leadership at the high school may be interested in their presidents, and vice presidents, and come in and do checkups or reports. It might kind of fill that space. Be a whole lot easier to manage.
Yeah. Especially when it's topical and when it pertains to the youth, I think about open space and activity and. You know, function of the library and the makerspace. Things that, you know, I know the land use conversations are riveting. But it's not always like the most exciting for the youth. You know?
Highly contentious. This way, you guys are in for it, Gunderson and Sundin.
So council,
Hilton and Berkeley went through one. Comstock.
Yeah.
Well,
5-hour one?
Contentious.
well,
5-hour meeting.
our first one was the great,
Oh, yeah.
Bumper
Right.
partition.
That,
Yep.
that one was the 5-hour one.
Yeah.
Councilor Shelton mentioned the rec commission, the kind of reflecting back on the Parks Commission, when I first got to the city had a 1978 Parks Master Plan and just wasn't nothing more than having a Parks Master Plan. We brought on, worked with the Core Rare, brought on Jenny Dim Show. And, you know, I kind of tasked her with that. We worked together and kind of got her going, worked with the commission and came up with a really excellent plan. That ended up in a plan that we kept her on after her assignment to start working on the capital improvement component of that plan, because any master plan is pretty worthless without a projects list to work on. And so we got her to do that. And then that plan also tied into the connectivity between all the park spaces, having these trail connections, whether they're off street or on street, bike paths, all of that. Thing that brought the bike and ped piece kind of into the plan. And, you know, most recently we've added recreation to that function, because that's probably less than 5 years old. Recreation is.
Yeah.
And then moved it away. So my thought on, and then just coming up is that we don't have a recreation plan. So, you know, having a recreation plan is going to give us a roadmap to what we want to do, how we're going to get there.
Absolutely agree.
And, you know, whether there's an immediate capital piece to that, you know, can work on that, but, and, you know, rather than having a standing committee that really just, the old Parks Commission talked about who got to use the ball fields, pretty much. That was,
You're saying come up with a plan with a committee and
work on allocating resources to come up with a recreation plan, so we know
there's focus on moving forward.
having things we want to do on Ross Road, have connectivity, the programming we want to do.
GAs with the school, have them come in, sit down.
District.
Yep.
Other organizations, but I think that would be a fantastic goal for them. Out of this work.
I agree with that. I think it's a good start for recreation too. I don't want to see recreation hit the sideline because it's been, you know, eliminated from a board, because it is very important. And I think that it could, you know, in the future, I could see it being very sustainable. We just have to invest some time and, you know, get community buy-in for it.
Softball tournaments.
Softball, there's the BMX bike trail, like there's so many different recreation aspects, you know, for adults and kids.
But it is sustainable right now.
Right, and we want to have a.
It's 100%, but it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, because
There's certain
there
elements.
was some monies that were involved. Yes, I know that, but
It's amazing. It's 4 years old, right?
Yeah, and it's hitting gold standards, you know, across the book, and so I don't wanna see it neglected.
And trying to talk to, and I'd like to support Shauna in this, talking about a strategic plan, kind of like the library's process right now. That we're, you know, doing that stakeholder
well,
engagement.
I would think with what we've done recently with our move, that it would take less off of and allow more focus on recreation.
And also, this is a beautiful youth connection piece. Really want a lot of youth voices
Absolutely, yeah.
to be a part of recreation planning.
Sean and I talk a lot more than we used to, so since the division, so we're finding the new normal and grow. And she's got some exciting things as far as funding opportunities.
Yeah.
I never want her to feel nervous because she's a very valued member of the city of St. Helens. And so is the rec program.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors that.
Utilizing
I
the rec program after school.
don't know why she would. Yeah, I'm kind of baffled because I've heard rumor of that too. And I'm baffled that I should have a talk with her, but I'm baffled why.
We love you, Shauna.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so valuable and such, back to that, who do we serve, right? We serve a lot of youth,
A lot.
a lot of youth.
Families, so and that
Yes.
opens the door to each one of those, St. Helens families.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanna do a little bit of check-in as to like how working with the commissions is going. Like, how is you've served on many of our boards and commissions, like, what do you feel like the most valuable pieces are?
But to the people with the boots on the ground in those areas. And have an understanding, of a little bit more in depth of what actually each. Specific piece, how it functions.
Yeah,
So that I see as a benefit. If we were doing a SWAT, sometimes it's because they are so involved in that little individual thing that maybe some of the big pictures not being, you have the forces in those boards that have one or two items. And we all have that happen. It does just happen. But I think, so it could be also bad in a sense too, if,
right, and we've come
Because-
to like some frustrated commission members, and it's like, how can we better support you?
Turnover.
How can we, well, and without budget available, right? How do we make it
Well,
meaningful?
I do think that one thing that came out with my time with planning was when I first got on. Two was just whether right or wrong, but their perception that the council didn't always appreciate the time that they had put into decisions, and then because when things were brought to the council, then the council would override. So I think I do. Yeah, right, and I felt some of that too with with folks, and one of my last meetings. Well, anyway, but the fact then that we got together to have the scheduled meetings together, so that we're doing that on a regular basis. So I think that kind of thing was I found good, that I heard what they were saying, understood was able to, I think, understand better where they were coming from and understand that, even though I thought that, and I think encouraging them to be more, advocate more for themselves in this kind of thing. So anyway, was the thing. It's important as a liaison to have an ear to the ground, so that we can, when those issues are brought to the whole council, so I saw my role as trying my best to interpret and advocate, for that, but also understanding, what the role of the council was, but then trying to find how we can meet those needs.
And meet that bridge.
Bring it together so that, I think that if it happens again, that.
And it wasn't-
Has a decision we overturn, it will feel that they've at least have been at the table and we've discussed bigger
And
issues.
it wasn't an intent or ours, or like, we're doing this on purpose or anything like that. We had no idea that they didn't feel a part of.
So I found that
That's
good.
Really, yeah.
I have a question then about the councils. So
The commissions,
the commission, sorry. So say they're working on a project. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. We can use the planning commission. Put some on that one. Say they're working on a plan, they're on a topic. They've got another strategic commission to go with that. And they're developing this whole, this comprehensive plan, how they see fit. And then they bring it to us and we all go, oh, Is there any way that they can like,
No. Nope, we are the ultimate authority.
no, but I mean, can we send them back to the drawing board and say, we like this, and this?
Absolutely.
I think it would be helpful for our commissions to have more direction from you as council.
And that's kind of what I'm asking, like, and I'm using the planning commission just because of some of the stuff that's coming up. And I'm just saying that that's just not gonna fly, what you're asking, that's just not gonna work in this community. I'm living here long enough that I know that it's not, you putting a campground here is not gonna be happy, people are not gonna be happy with that. You know what I mean?
I think part of it is knowing the role of the planning commission also. The motivation for the planning commission is supposed to be doing, I think is important and not always remembered.
Well,
Because I think the role of the planning commission is more like to be focused on developmental projects, not kind of creating ideas of.
Or a knee jerk reaction.
Well,
Go ahead, Patrick, because I mean.
Yeah, because I think, yeah, because I think, because actually I was very supportive of their ad hoc, their proactive, because if you do look at the things that they can do, I said, it is actually very broad. And they have the ability to, or the ability to do these things. A lot of it's been the capacity. I know a lot of the dialogue at the planning commission was to get staff support. What could, if they had this ad hoc committee, for instance, talking about the 3115 and the homelessness. Law that's going to be taking effect. I think their discussion about their choice to do that certainly fell within their rights as a budget or as a planning commission. Now, when I supported that, and I still did, is that understanding that what they can do, how they can help the council and how they can help staff is by doing some of the legwork, some of the investigation, some of the study, so that they could, as a smaller group, talk about, hey, this is what we found out. Talk to the larger planning commission, the larger planning commission could say yay or nay that we would like to, forward this on to the city, but then ultimately it's the city that makes those decisions. But I saw it as that they can be bringing another point of view or points of view to them, to us. Now, how it has it currently worked out that way, how the committee, the ad hoc committee sees it, or the broader planning commission, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have been and do continue to be supportive of their investigation or looking into these areas, but with the understanding then that that they're providing information for us so we can be the best informed possible, and then in which to make our ultimate decisions.
It all makes sense.
And when you word it like that, yes, that makes perfect sense.
So that's how I understood and supported, and I would think, yeah.
So I know a little bit what's going on there. I mean, like they want to tackle, some things that are gonna be controversial, architectural design. Blight, what definitions of blight, in setting policy for maybe even unused buildings. On the main strips.
Mhm.
And they're willing to tackle some of those items that will pack their room too. They'll pack our room, and they'll pack theirs, and they'll vet it. And it'll either pass or get denied at their level. If it's denied at their level, and there's a bunch of Luigi's publicly driven. Then we know that, well, that's something. They've already been down that road, it's been discussed, gives us a little bit of.
That clears things up. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I was looking at for.
That's what they're looking at doing. I know this. Seems like this one bill is taking up a lot of attention, and I've expressed to the planning chair, my concerns in moving forward. And that we are working with the city. You are in contact with our city attorney. Let's let this. I know you're an attorney, but we have our attorney there too. And ultimately, we know our community, we do. And so, and moving forward, I think that's kind of a little bit what was, for me. I would be tough to, come in as brand new, and I apologize that you went through a 5-hour meeting in your first.
I know, it's fine, it is what it is.
First.
Sympathy from me.
But no, that's a good question. That was a great question.
Yes.
And that's good to talk about it here. So it was a great question.
And I really want our current commissions and boards to feel well supported, for the staff to be able to support them, for us to be able to recruit members and them to be vibrant before we go like overextending ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Right. And it's really about mission fit, and John, like the point about looking around and seeing who else is doing particularly for arts and cultural, like, would it be helpful for the other arts groups to come and speak to council? Right? Would it be helpful to workshop with folks who are doing youth activities? That type of thing.
Your initial question, I think it's the eyes and the ears, the extra eyes and ears we have on all areas of the city.
Yeah,
Your initial question, I'm thinking about,
core function.
Parks Commission, and how there are also friends of groups. Of friends of that actually let us know that, hey, there's a sign broken down there, or there's some garbage. It looks appears that maybe somebody's camping in an area they shouldn't be camping in, and we're able to address those issues and keep us safe. I know Councilor Sunday went down and had a work group around the Veterans Memorial. That was awesome. We appreciate it, our 3-man crew do what they can in Parks Department, and probably was a little worse than it should have been, but they addressed it and cleaned it up.
I hate to cut out, but I have a kiddo I need to pick up from basketball. So.
Are you guys going for a drink somewhere?
No, I don't. Go to stop us. You know that you're safe.
That's the next retreat. But no, this has come up so much. I really just wanted to kind of gut check with you all, like, what is functioning, what is not, like, what are the real vital functions of our boards and commissions? And to have the staff conversation about what it takes for a healthy commission. And we're not doing the greatest job, right? There's been quite a bit of frustration. It's hard to keep it all together. Like, we could be doing better by these volunteers. In my opinion. And then,
Well, yeah, I just think, code of conduct and everything, just knowing that we have to be respectful, our mantra, I just think, overall, I think that could be revisited through every, because they're a reflection of the city too, and I want to make sure that is also being held, because sometimes we do get complaints. We get complaints about ourselves too, because I'm not always the easiest person to deal with. And I'm not. I know that about myself.
you may want to go on tour, you may want to go on commission tour. And check in and.
Well, and something I have not had the pleasure of being assigned to a commission or board yet, but I always appreciate like when Councilor Morton would come and talk to us about things he was bringing back from those meetings. I think that's the important role from, my perspective, is to report back, and I think them feeling like you are hearing what they're saying and you're bringing it back here, even if it's just in your report, I think is important, and it helps us all understand what's happening. So I like to hear about what happened.
Just from, go ahead.
No, I just-
Just from my time on the Parks Commission, you've already got it in bold there. The biggest complaint I heard was just the lack of communication. So I think that's definitely an area that can be improved upon. Just working, we've got a Parks Department, we've also got a Parks Commission. So what's the relationship there? How do they work together? How do they function? So I think communication is key.
And so like I Suzanne and I we set up a standing meeting the week prior to the library board meeting. She'd give me an overview of
That's
things that
cool.
are going up and stuff, and
Yeah.
she might have questions, and like with the budget process coming up, sound me out about issues, and I think I try to, again, not not make any promises, but do have some, suggestion about maybe how they would approach the library board, the board in terms of being involved as the budget process comes up, so that it's they can feel more actively involved in it, instead of maybe like kind of what happened last year when suddenly, the youth librarian is gone, and that we can maybe hopefully stave off some of that kind of thing too, as we able to provide information of what's going on from our point of view, and to make sure that, we're communicating.
That's what I was doing with the chief, like we would communicate and I'd come back to council and share things that were happening with the police.
Even though you don't get a vote, you still get a talk in these commissions.
Yeah.
And your voice is very powerful. So, and again, utilize Jacob quite a bit, because there's gonna be a lot of things coming down the pipe. Trust me, because I've seen those planning commissions, sometimes the topics are coming up. And he's always available, especially if you call ahead of time, he'll make time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
And maybe that's a really good point, and maybe it's just a best practice to check in with your department head and the chair. Like pick a frequency, maybe once a month.
Duty to report back.
I gotta stop ghosting John then, right? And actually meet with him now.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
I know it's not frequently, okay, that's one time. I gotta meet with Mohammed too.
And maybe, I mean. Maybe I'll just do a little summary of some like best practice, like meet with your folks, get ahead of the budget thing. If. A couple of prompts maybe for the report back to council, like. Take away from the meeting, any challenges your commission's gonna face, and then like their like top 2 priorities. Maybe that would be.
That's a pretty good idea, yeah.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I think that's her too, and us be able to feel like we're sharing,
That's a great idea, Rachel.
Be good.
Thank you all.
Yeah. That was probably one of the biggest takeaways from the meeting, I mean, other than, the charter, everything's important, but that's, one that's gonna serve our community better,
Yeah.
what we just discussed there.
And the volunteer.
Getting the balance, right?
Yeah.
Of ability to serve. Having impact with our commissions.
And please be recruiting. There's a budget committee vacancy, a parks committee vacancy, and a library board.
Well, we need it.
So. Any other commission vacancies? That's fine. Okay.
All right, I gotta run, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, see you all.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you all. Appreciate your work. Appreciate this time.
Yeah.
Anybody know who owns the flag in the St. Helens Street that's all tattered and?
I just asked about that. I was
We'll
told,
put one up ourselves.
I was told Clark Signs would be the one to talk to.
Yeah, boy, it took a beating, just all of a sudden. Because I don't remember it being that bad.
Which,
Clark Signs at the end.
Highway there.
yeah, okay, the one, okay, that's.
Yeah, it would be more likely Clark Signs, I mean, I know Les owns the property.
Wes owns the property. He's the one I asked, and
Yeah.
he said Clark Signs is the one that maintains
They
the
lease that
the
little.
board and the flag.
Okay.
So, but I've had a couple different people ask me about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I will refer to. I'm on the short list of things.
Put it on your short list of your long list.
The short,
And I know,
thank you so much.
I'm trying to think of his. Well, it's son David, but I'm trying to think of his name, but he would more than likely. Buy a new flag and put it up, if he was just do about it, but
Dale?
offer,
Dale, is that right?
that sounds about right, yeah.
Are we done?
You wanna talk any more talking points, John?
Sometimes comp time you want to.
Yeah, he doesn't qualify, right?
You guys,
He does, I know.
you just sit here all night.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Well, this is valuable, talking about the boards, commissions, how best to serve our community. What's effective, we have these standing meetings that just kind of go through the motions and don't really produce a lot, and we need to take a look at, is that something we need to do, or just be mindful of that, I guess, as we do this, things like planning commission have a full plate all the time, or probably not gonna be one of those committees, and budget committees, just a few meetings in arts and culturals, and support to the community, but there's other people that might be able to do it. I think rec is an opportunity to come up with a master plan that will help fill that niche. Historic landmarks is already folded into planning commission.
Yeah.
It's been folded into parks and trails. Oh, and the youth council, which is, youth council is really challenging. It's just because the turnover is so high and trying to treat it like an official meeting, and then your pipeline of talent, and I think having a connection. Schools, it's to the high school. Leadership. And you might be. That offer. Yeah, you would hope that this is a communication spot where they, as a council, they get information, they go back to the school and they talk more information, and so that maybe doesn't, but that's the intent of it, is that get people interested in government and what we do and how we do it. And coach that next generation of leaders and people who care about their community and deserve.
So maybe our next retreat could be on our goals, council goals. Just showing that list and where we're at.
On a strategic plan.
Yes, on the strategic plan, yes.
Choreographed.
Yeah. Yep, but I think that would be. Very, even so I don't lose focus, because we have right on top, going now. Next in line and kind of on the low, and sometimes those low, all of a sudden they were on there. And it's like, oh, we talked about that, and now is the time to take that one off and put it up. Maybe you would skip completely over the middle rung. You'll see how it's
Yeah, there's
here.
high, medium, and not low priorities, but they're just kind of out
Yeah.
on the list. And sometimes those priorities shift as the new program for funding will become available, and there's match a few dollars and get a lot, and move something up a little bit.
And
Developer comes in and wants to do a chunk of it as part of their project, so.
most of it has work behind it. That's why I think you guys need to see it too, is because it already has steps in the process where you can actually look over some stuff and say, well, it's already done this planning and. If it ever comes up, yeah.
Half baked and ready to, it needs funding sometimes.
I know Lisa wants to get out of here.